I mean, hey, we had to really want to do this interview to go through that much technical difficulty.
Right, I know.
I'm very proud of us.
Push start recording. Should I do that?
I'm recording too, so we're all good.
Okay, perfect.
At least so go ahead and just back up recording, because at this point, after we tried 3 separate times, I don't trust any technology today. I am anti-tech today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was listening to one of the episodes where there were like technical difficulties, and you guys were talking about it too.
It gets hilarious after a while. It's like, like we were getting some like critiques on like, wow, Monica talks a lot and really fast. It's like, okay, so what happened was Skype dropped, and I'm just seeing a static person in front of me, and I am just trying to fill time until Skype catches up, or if I have to press stop.
Right.
Like behind the scenes in really cool podcast world.
Exactly. Too
so
funny.
I was reading through your questions today, and I am really excited to talk to you because we haven't discussed any of this before. I'm so excited
to talk to you too.
It's like the big thing that like we say, at least in my family, and I'm realizing how insensitive it sounds, is at least it's not cancer. And I'm realizing that's a really insensitive thing to say because you dealt with that. I probably should really like reframe how I speak, because wow.
Well, actually, that's actually like such a great segue into kind of starting the conversation, starting kind of what everything is about from 5 years ago, in kind of this mission that I, felt myself on, in that, and as you know, and I'm sure you read, so I had a bone tumor, and they're extremely rare, but the majority of bone tumors are benign, and something like 0.2% of bone tumors are cancerous.
Lucky you.
And I'm about to have my 7th surgery in December to reconstruct where this tumor was. And this is a benign tumor. So, I mean, it destroyed everything in its path. My whole knee is replaced. 7 inches of my femur was replaced. And it just needs continual maintenance. I mean, like a car. I mean, it's hardware and technology. So what's crazy about that is that, 15 years ago, I'm 37 today, I'll be 38 in January. 15 years ago, I was 21 years old, about to turn 22, when I found this thing from just pain with, light activity. And social media wasn't around 15 years ago. Like, Facebook had maybe just been created, and just for Harvard or whatever it is.
Oh, God, the kinder, gentler years.
Stuff, went. And Instagram didn't happen until like 2010. So 5 years ago, when I was getting ready for my 6th surgery, it was the surgery that they do for individuals that have the malignant version of my tumor. Because this tumor that I had was so extremely rare and recurred with this high percentage, that we decided to do the most radical thing, which was to take out all the bone involved and replace it with what's called a distal femoral replacement, which is basically a knee plus. So like a knee plus up as much as needed to take out of my femur. And I was dying to talk to anybody that had this surgery, because I was kind of excited, because you get you see all these stories of people getting their knee replaced, whether they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that are like, they have a new lease on life, and they're like, wow, I had so much pain, and, I'm doing all this activity now, and it's just, overnight, I was walking within a day of surgery, you hear these crazy stories, and I decided to use Instagram and search hashtags of, like, different tumor types and that kind of thing, and that's where bone tumor awareness was born. So now it's like 4 or 5 years later, and like close to 1,500 people in this group, and all different, malignancies, benign, and all that kind of stuff, of different types of bone tumors and situations. And since it's so rare, it's one of those, conditions where it's really up to your surgeon to decide their best treatment path and all that kind of stuff. And you see all these different stories come, in all these different online groups of, things that you're like, oh, damn, that really sucks. That probably wasn't the best idea, for a treatment or whatever it is, as kind of like an armchair doctor, But, and I'm sure all of us, people with chronic pain or chronic issues, are like, oh, they really got like the shitty end of the stick with that, that physician. And, that's another hard thing. There's like less than 200 specialists for this in the United States, and even more of an issue finding somebody overseas. So so that's kind of how this was born. And I found who are now people that I haven't even met in person that I would consider best friends, that you bond hardcore over all this stuff about. And I was finding the most people that I could ask questions about with a tumor that's called osteosarcoma, which is, it happens even in dogs. It's, a pretty aggressive malignant tumor of the bone that starts in the bone. And that's when I said, you know what, malignant or benign, we're having the same surgeries, the same pain, the same everything. And I want to bundle that all up into one, because full disclosure, sometimes when I go and talk in some of these, support groups for people that have had cancerous lesions, I still kind of feel like I'm a little bit of an outcast because, these people have to undergo different, types of treatments and radiation and chemo. Sometimes they don't, and we'll just do a surgery and we'll be continually monitored. But yeah, that's when I was like, you know what? I need an all-encompassing bone tumor group for all of us to share all the different surgeries, or even talk about physicians that we love or whatever it is that have been great for us, because these are hard to find. I mean, I'm on my 4th surgeon in 7 surgeries. So, and I'm going to be an exception of somebody that's very picky and like very, advocating for my health to be what I need it to be and my treatment to be what I need it to be, right? So yeah, that's kind of, like I said, even though I went off in a long story for you, but I mean, that's a great kind of starter into how I wanted to, I wanted to give credit to these people like myself, that have underwent and now about to go into a 7th surgery, I know some people with malignancies that have had 1 surgery. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just all varies, and I don't want to discriminate and say you can't come in here because you don't have cancer. I want to say, hey, what surgeries have you had? What treatments have you had? Some people with benign tumors have gotten, there's a medication called Xgeva, and it's like essentially a shot that's technically, I guess, under the chemo realm, but it's intended to shrink a tumor before doing surgery on it if it's in a sensitive place, like an ankle or something like that. So yeah, I mean, we get all types of different treatments because they're so rare, and these physicians are just trying what they think they know works best, whether it's either radiation or these shots or, barbaric surgeries, as I call them. So yeah, that was kind of my overall mission, to just put everybody together in a room that has had the same pain, surgeries, experiences, to be able to share and kind of just chat and support each other.
I love that. There's so many, there's almost like this weird purity level with the social media groups where it's like, well, I'm sorry, but you're not sick enough for this group.
Right.
Or there's like this one-upmanship that happens in a lot of the groups that gets a little intense. I'll leave it at intense. Like, wow, I'm not trying to be sicker than you, I swear. You win on sick. Congratulations. Like, if that was the trophy you were going for, well done.
I know. And, another thing that's kind of really, really sad about that I've realized, like, when I first created this group, like, I'm a marketing person. So, like, naturally, and I'm very entrepreneurial. So naturally, I'm like, can this be monetized in some way? Whether it's to, create some kind of brand awareness for this and something that isn't viral, but that's like very much like a spoony kind of thing where all of us bone tumor people want to have like a little, like I had these little bracelets made that were like, I was thinking of Kabbalah and like how the red bracelets were so popular. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make a color that's, unisex and all this stuff. And I branded this group, and I started, and the whole idea was to fund for me to be able to find a beneficiary, related to orthopedic research and all this stuff, to be able to throw those funds into. And, this really opened my mind to that not everybody's like me, and not everybody has $5, $10, $15 to spend on something like that. And some people are on Medicaid or whatever. I've, always had, one of the best PPOs, whatever that my company that I work for offers. And I've had the total luxury of that life and building a career for the last 10, 15 years. And I have a lot of friends, in these groups that are fully on disability. Mm-hmm. So, they have a fixed income and they just don't have money to spend like that. And that's when I just completely changed my mindset about trying to do that. And now, one of the big things that I started doing was people that, if I was aware that they were having a surgery, especially if it was similar to mine, leg, arm, all those are going to be different, is that I would just pay for, stuff that I knew really helped me. And like I said, I just really changed it to a very pay it forward mentality instead of let's try and get money from people or crowdfund or whatever for this cause. I think, since it's so rare and there's, even 1,000 to 1,500 people, at the end of the day doesn't sound like a lot, but I think considering how rare this is, it's a lot of people, in one place. And I would send these little surgery packages to people. Or another thing that was crazy was I just totally winged it and started writing to companies that sold products like gel packs and, warm ice or, that treatment or athletic tape. And I had 20 companies. It's the faith that you have or, sometimes the pessimism that you have with people not caring. I had these companies just send me boxes of product without asking me anything to see anything. And I just had kind of and that was where the marketing and creative ended up coming through, where I had a good written spiel and sell on, hey, I'm in a group of 1,500 people that would benefit highly from your product. I have no problem promoting your product. I use your product. Can I get some to give away, as prizes? And I remember this dining room that I had was full of crap, and I was living at my parents, and they were so pissed because they were like, "So when are you moving this stuff?" Because we have a pack, a stack of ice packs, and whatever biofreeze cream and all that stuff all over the place, and I still have tons of that stuff. And I tried to do monthly kind of contests with little trivia things for people to win. And another thing I noticed that a lot of people in the group were also overseas. So I was like, oof, the shipping's getting expensive. But that's all kind of stuff that I was like, you know what, I don't care. These people definitely need this stuff more than, or that can afford it less than I can. So I'll do what I can to help people that, are really looking for any kind of guidance or help or, that don't have, as big as a network or maybe a physician that talks to them enough about what, their needs are going to be. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting life learning experience of, the transformation of the original thinking, in this entrepreneurial fashion to what it really should be, which is, this kind of genuine, really wanting to help people out there that are now in my shoes 15 years ago when I had not one person to relate to or connect to about what I was going through. So yeah.
So I'm going to back up for just a second. What is the ultimate, because it sounds like the surgery packages could work for anyone who's going into surgery pretty much.
Right.
What's your, ultimate gift basket for, so people listen to this are also caregivers. So, what's the ultimate thing? If your friend's going for surgery, what would be a good gift basket to go buy?
Okay. So, for me, it would be most applicable for somebody that's going to be immobile because, my surgery was a leg. So I'm going to be coming up on 2 to 3 months at least, not even bearing weight on my leg. So there's a couple of tools that are my go-tos. A grabber.
I love that.
Those grabbers, you have no idea. People that don't even have this disability will be like, "Can I borrow your grabber for a second?" I'm like, "Yeah," because it's awesome. It's amazing. And you're laying in bed and you drop something and you just want to grab something.
I can't tell you how many times I've fallen out of bed when I've been super dislocated and I've actually gotten so much worse falling out of bed because I'm I can totally reach that one little thing that's on the floor.
And you're doing acrobatics.
Oh yeah, no, it's Cirque du Soleil. Yeah, it's I need grab bars for.
Yeah, and people kind of give that kind of thing a stigma that it's for somebody that's 95 years old. Hell no, that was one of the first things I got. And it even has a magnet on the end. So I can stick it on my bedpost.
Age early 40s, body mid 90s.
Yeah,
I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm good. All of that stuff that's made for
Right. there's another thing that's called a leg lifter, that it's basically kind of like this stick that has a little loop on the end. And for me, that is so important, because when you have caretakers, like you're saying, and you're kind of motioning to get off your bed, and you have this leg that was just cut into 5, 6, 7 days ago, even 2-3 weeks ago, that is so painful once, gravity hits it and all the blood kind of goes there and everything's hurting so bad. I think that sometimes, and I feel so bad because it's so easy for us in pain to get angry at somebody that's just trying their best, right? They'll lower your leg like at warp speed, and I'm like, that's happened to me so many times. Like, if my dad has been a big primary caretaker for me, and I remember he like pushed my foot into my shoe so hard, and I think every cuss word came out of my mouth at that moment. And I felt so bad because he just doesn't know. Like, he doesn't know that little like movement of just when you're trying to like shove a little kid's foot into the tennis shoe. So this leg lifter, you essentially on your own can like loop your foot into it and drop your leg down at your own leisurely pace, which is amazing. So one, you're not having to depend on somebody else and making them feel bad, right? And sometimes they'll give you that in the hospital even, or ask for it. Granted, it'll be like $95 instead of $11, in the hospital bill.
Quick reminder to our international audience, we are both here in the United States. We are dealing with the United States medical bills, and when we say that they will charge you $100 for an aspirin, we are not kidding. That actually show up on your bill. You took an aspirin, it was $100. They used a Q-tip that was $25. Like, seriously, if you itemize, it's unreal when you itemize our bills. So when we're saying these things, we're not exaggerating. We're here in the United States. We're dealing with the U.S. medical system. She's very lucky.
And there's so much waste. And I work in healthcare technology.
Yeah, so you have a really good PPO.
There's so much waste. Yeah, it's so much waste in healthcare, wasted dollars, wasted everything. And to give you a perfect example, when I had the big replacement surgery 5 years ago, which is when I kind of started my group, after the social had been invented and I was able to kind of find people to talk to and form this group together, I got my EOB, my statement, from my insurance of that surgery, and the charge was $127,000.
That sounds about right.
It'll blow your hair back, right?
Yeah.
And what was actually paid was something in the area of $27,000, and it was just fine and done. And I was like, it's just crazy to see, what was allowed to be paid for, and it was just zeroed out, and they were charging this $127,000.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, just a quick heads up for people who are going into surgery. Actually, if you're here in the United States, please, this is my one big tip for everyone, because it will absolutely kill you if you don't do this, not dead, but dead financially. Check to make sure that your nurses, your anesthesiologist, not just your surgeon, but all of them are on your medical plan, because if your anesthesiologist is not, you will have to pay the full anesthesiology cost, which can cost into the 6 figures. My little tip for everyone, please don't get caught out like that, because you won't think to ask, did your head surgery nurse also be on your plan? Did your anesthesiologist? Because they won't tell you that. So you have to actually ask, and then you have to shop the different hospitals, because different hospitals will charge vastly different amounts. So I'm sorry, that's my little moment. I'm not even on a soapbox. I'm just trying to save y'all money if you're here in the United States. So there we go.
It's totally relevant. Yeah. So the cost of all that. And, unfortunately, people even with a bone tumor wouldn't even have the luxury of doing that, because there's literally between 120 and 200 people that are specialized enough to treat these.
Yeah.
So that's very, very tough. And here's the other kind of difficult thing that I've come across and this is kind of like a day in the life of being the founder of this group. I'll get messages I've gotten a lot of people from the Philippines specifically, which is interesting, or overseas in the UK, Scotland, England, and a perfect story example is this one gal wrote to me. She's living here as an American now. She married an American man. She's from South Africa. And she had discovered a bone tumor that she knew she had for a long time as a child. She kind of there's different versions, but one of the most common benign bone tumors, it's like 30 to 40% of bone tumors, is called an osteochondroma. And it's basically like, to say it in a layman way, extra bone that has formed, and it protrudes typically. So it's not kind of like your bones cells splitting and creating this kind of like necrotic tumor flesh within your bone. So it's an easier tumor to treat. There's even a rare, orphan disease called HME, or hereditary multiple exostosis, or MHE, which is a childhood or adolescent condition where you get like a bunch of these around your body. So they call themselves bumpy, right? And so they just have all these little kind of bone bumps of extra bone that is formed, and they don't necessarily have to have surgery unless there's one that's painful, which is good, right? You don't want to have to undergo all these operations. And let's say if it was on your elbow and it hurt you so bad to be resting your elbow on it, maybe they would have, surgery on that. But yeah, this gal that was, in her mid 20s or so, knew she had to do something about it, and she found the group, from doing the search. She reached out, and so I had asked her, as much information as she had, and she had seen like a PCP, and even general orthopedists aren't necessarily familiar with bone tumors because it's that specialized. And I have a general orthopedist to treat other orthopedic issues that I have as a result of what has happened to my right leg. So I have tons of arthritis on the other side from overuse for 10 to 15 years. So I get, kind of cortisone and all these different kind of shots and stuff that have been very effective to help treat those easier issues. But this PCP had fully taken it upon himself to diagnose her with something I had never in my life heard of, and studying all this stuff as, like I said, an armchair wannabe, advocate for bone tumor patients. Something I had never heard of was suggesting to just get it taken out or have surgery, but I don't even know who, and kind of told her to go to all these different doctors. For her, somebody that wasn't working at the time, that copay and that copay and that copay would have been a total waste of money for her. And so I was able to find her the specialist in her area. Thankfully, she was in a more urban area in Florida. And a lot of these specialists are in urban area teaching hospitals. And so I found her that surgeon. She even showed me some of her x-ray imaging, which I asked if she had, if I could see, and of course with this disclaimer, I'm not a physician. Like I'm checking out your images to kind of see if I can maybe freak you out less. And I had taken a wild guess from all the different imaging that I've seen on what it was. And we made this kind of joke, and I was like, you owe me, lunch or dinner or something if I'm ever around in Florida, if I get this right, And so she made an appointment with the specialist. Immediately, he was able to diagnose it with what I guessed. She had the best, most smooth surgery ever. And, this other PCP had just, like I said, taken it upon himself to diagnose something he had no idea about, no training and no education. And granted, that was kind of what I was doing with her too. But, it's crazy to think of this path that somebody that you're trusting, right, that's highly educated. We put so much trust in these doctors to tell us the truth, the hashtag truth. And it's not always the truth. We're all human. Even technology, like the experience, doesn't work all the time. And so she ended up having a really great experience. Now, is that what happens to everybody with a bone tumor? No. Like I said, I've had 4 different surgeons. I've been misdiagnosed twice, and very big misdiagnoses, as in, hey, this is something that's never going to come back, to something that came back already 2-3 times. And you'll do great, and you'll be running and walking in 6 months, and I haven't run 15 years. So, or even jog, or even close to jog, or anything like that. So it's interesting, and it doesn't even matter how prestigious the hospital. Like, that's the last thing I think that really matters, because, yeah, you're going to search for the, top 10 or whatever that we know our advertised as at, but my worst experience was at a place that shall remain nameless, but that is very prestigious and well known. And where I go now, nobody would even have heard of it. And it's the best, most amazing, compassionate, best bedside manner, most innovative surgeon I've ever had. So it's really about finding what's right for you, and it's just such a shame because there are people of limited means with these conditions, with every condition, right? And they have, you're essentially forced to travel, at times 1, 2, 3, 4 hours or a plane ride away for your treatment for somebody that is specialized in this. So it's really, really tough sometimes. So especially like in the Philippines, right? Like I was saying, some people contact me from the Philippines and they live in remote towns and villages, and the only thing available for them is in Manila, and it's really, really tough. So yeah, it's really tough to kind of see those stories play out if they can't, get treated in the time that they should, because these are serious. You could essentially, what happens is you could get what's called a pathological fracture. So you break through your tumor, and it can be very destructive if it's close to a joint, or, and it's not like a little crack, it's like a pencil break. So yeah, so it's...
if you want to see my facial expressions, please go to YouTube. We have a channel and post these. The reason I'm cringing is because I have Ehlers-Danlos. I have mass dislocations like 5 times a day. I am no stranger to massive levels of pain. I will take all of my dislocations any fucking day over bone surgery. I had that once. I refused to have the other limb done. The other limb needs it done. I will not do it. I would rather have the dislocations every day on that tibia than ever have my bones drilled again. I have the utmost empathy and sympathy here. If you think you understand this pain because you've had laparoscopic surgery, I've had that too. It's not even close. It's not like that's like saying that I have headaches so I get migraines. Like, bone surgery is a different world, and I never want to go into it again. I'm happy being a very short tourist there. I never want to go again. So, like, everything you're talking about, like, bone opening, I'm like, right. I can't viscerally handle this. Like,
and,
that pain.
I never broke one bone my whole life. So 0 to 37 years old, I've never broken a bone, and I was an athlete my whole life, which is something that also would have never worked out for me, based on my destiny, and with this bone tumor. And I found it from being active, and that's probably the last time that I was truly active. And so
tell us about, like, how did you find it? Like, what was, like, you're pretty young when you found it. It's not like something that's usually, like, when you have a presenting female body, you usually to do breast cancer screens. Like, by the time you're 20, you've heard all of the ways to, if you're a person with breasts, you've learned how to, like, check out that in the lymph nodes. Like, there's all sorts of, like, basic maintenance that, like, a lot of us know to check for in our bodies. And I'm sure male presenting bodies, which I don't understand yet, even at my 40s. I'm sure there's things you guys have all learned about, like, how to, like, handle a body that is, that. How did you know to even check anything? Like, pretty young to check.
It's so rare. It's never talked about. So, like, what I would encourage and give advice to anybody that listens that is young in their first, second, or third decade of life, which is the most common age range to get this. I was 21 years old. I had probably had it at least since my teens, because when I first found the tumor that I had, which was right at my knee, I was getting to a point where I couldn't, like, do a little jog. And I had, like, this rock bottom moment. I was in college. I went to design school in Chicago, and we had these little key cards to get in and out of classes. And I'd forgotten mine, and somebody was holding open the door, and I said, oh, wait, can you keep that open? And I tried to do this little jog, and my knee just, like, completely gave out. And I was in denial. I was like, I'll go get this checked, whatever. Like, I've always been an athlete. I have little pains here and there and all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, it was the holidays. It was, like, right before Christmas. And I was a college student. I mean, I was young. I didn't have any kind of, like, other obligations or bills or anything to worry about. So that's another thing, too. Like, thinking about surgeries today from back then when I had, like, not a care in the world. And, caretakers and your parents. And if you're lucky enough to have family that will help you out, or family that's around, I'm so fortunate to have had that stuff. But yeah, and I had this rock bottom moment where I went and I had all these x-rays and all this stuff done, and everything was very fast. It was very much like, you need to see this doctor tomorrow. We made you an appointment. We hand delivered your MRIs, and we did, all this stuff. And I'm 21, and clueless about what the heck is going on. And I'm like, what doctor did you make me an appointment with? They're like, oh, an orthopedic oncologist. I didn't even know what oncology was.
It might actually have helped with the stress level if you didn't know what that was.
Well, until I looked it up, right? And I was like, what on earth is happening? So, of course, I was living 700 miles away from my family, and they said, well, tell your surgeon to recommend somebody over here, in the East Coast, so that you can come home and have the surgery, and, you'll be home and we'll take care of you. And so that ended up not being a successful path, unfortunately, but again, it happens to the best of us and to the best of physicians. And so, yeah, it's just being that young, like I said, and not having one person to talk about, and you're talking about this bone stuff. And I think another really good kind of topic is this pain management thing, because now with how progressive everything has gotten with medical marijuana and all of this kind of stuff, there's so many people that have talked to me about, have you explored your options with medical marijuana and all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, at the end of the day, I think that how medical marijuana would help me would be maybe to just like chill me out if I'm very tense from pain. But there is nothing, not even the heaviest Dilaudid, morphine, whatever. And you're laughing because you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's nothing that will take away a millimeter of anything that somebody did to your bone. It is horrendous.
You're killing me because, I just think that the only thing that the marijuana is going to stop from bone pain is just, the levels of anxiety you feel when someone goes, have you tried? And, I'll take a hit just to deal with what you're going to say next. That's the only, applicable use for bone. Seriously, if you have not had bone surgery, you there's no way to understand. I could never understand if I hadn't had it. And I had it with a 2-year-old. I had a toddler son when I had my bone surgery.
I can't eat that.
It was unique.
Yeah, I don't have kids. I have cats, and I can't even do their food, or whatever it is.
I have cats who have this weird idea that they're gonna help by jumping on whatever hurts. They will go from really high up, jump, curl around it, and start purring. It is the most sadistic thing that I know. I don't write me emails. I know they're trying to help. I get it. I don't hate them for it, but it is just when he's like, what the fuck, cat? Why are you doing this to me? I feed you.
I know. I feed you and I give you shelter. This is why we can't have nice things.
Right? Yes. Toddlers and cats. That's why we can't have nice things.
Right.
All right. So what does work for pain management for this? Have you found anything? I remember back and
that's it.
Yeah.
And that's, my goal with my 7th operation is because essentially what has happened since I had this replacement is that I've never fully recovered. I had to have a revision within 1.5 years. To give you an example of something that could happen. A woman's body, right, has a little more different curvature and shape than a male, or like a robot skeleton that you see in the lab.
I'm sorry, have you not seen what the fashion magazines are telling us? We're all supposed to look the same. Anyone presenting male, female, we're all supposed to look like rulers. That is apparently with washboard abs. That's what we're supposed to be doing here.
Exactly. And so I noticed within a year of having tons of physical therapy, which is, I'm a huge advocate for, and I do notice a lot of folks that have these surgeries don't invest their time and effort in physical therapy, and they will often get really stuck. And I'm like, this is the hardest part. The surgery isn't the hard part, actually. It's the after, right? Especially when it's something related to a joint. I can't tell you, and of course, nobody that gets a bone tumor is lucky, but if it's mid-bone or something, I'm jealous because I'm like, oh, they don't have a joint to fully recover and get all range of motion and extension and flexion and everything back to. So, it's for any kind of thing related to a joint, knee recovery is no pain, no gain. It's known as, you got to get back to bending. And I've had a situation where a doctor was like, you need to do physical therapy 5 times a week. She wrote aggressive on the script because otherwise they were going to take me back into surgery to force bend my leg, which is the manipulation surgery. And I'm like, 21 years old, crying in that appointment, saying, I don't want to have surgery. And I went 5 days a week, and it was horrendous. And the last 20 minutes of every appointment was just force bending that knee. And that's, again, not the surgery. For me, surgery is like vacation. That's the worst way to think about it. It's you're put to sleep, you're in la la land and whatever, you're fully taken care of around the clock by these nurses. When you get home and your recovery and PT and all that other stuff, that's the hardest part because you're back to your life. And, especially being not 21 anymore and 37 and I have to pay my mortgage and am I going to go on short-term disability? I'm going to have to pay or whatever it is. And so it just really sucks. But yeah, this, right now for the last couple of years, it's been round the clock pain management with opiates. They work the best. I've been suggested and tried some other different types of medication, which to me, I feel like a lot of doctors will often try to prescribe other types of medication to put in the mix to make you kind of come off opiates a little bit, like a gabapentin, for instance. And I'll never forget falling asleep almost driving from taking gabapentin and not feeling anything different with my pain. And I was like, nothing's different, not worth it, right? Not worth adding another thing to my portfolio of drugs. So, and it just, all these different, the opioid crisis has been in existence forever. It's not a new thing. I mean, it's been around forever. And then what happens is, unfortunately, if it's too expensive or people can't get, opioids or whatever, pills, essentially, especially in the VA and with veterans, that runs rampant. It's so sad. But yeah, I mean, you get your hands on other stuff, and that's kind of how all these issues are born. But I especially am very crazy about all this stuff because I have major addiction in my family. So that to me has been very scary the last couple of years. And I have literally on my phone, detailed notes about every little minute that I took a pill so that I know exactly when I last took something, that it's been 4, 5, 6 hours since the last thing, not overdosing, or overdosing per what my instructions are. And, and it's another sad thing is that I've seen other patients get way overprescribed than they need to be because my prescriptions are not crazy. They're managing as much as I can. What really stinks and why I'm having this surgery is that I have a stress fracture right now in the remaining femur from the interaction with this hardware. So I'm getting it kind of pimped out. So I'm getting this kind of custom
Are you getting Pimp My Leg? Because this is a new show.
We should make an episode. It had to go through this kind of compassionate device FDA procedure that's taken a couple of months because we're essentially combining components from 2 different manufacturers. So that needs all this kind of approval. Who knows if it's real approval or what's in that approval.
The FDA has been an interesting ally and standout problem for so many.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So how do you decide?
You're dead on right about that bone pain. It is indescribable. It is paralyzing. I make that comment about, I have this, with this stress fracture, if I move side to side, that's a very hard movement, even in bed, which is passive. It's you're not walking around. And, my boyfriend will be are you okay? Because it'll be and you'll, it's the worst, pain for that 1 second, and you have to, catch your breath, and, I don't think any amount of weed will take that away, which I wish it did. I really wish it did. I don't even want to go down that path, and I don't discourage anybody from doing that if that's what they want to do and if it helps. And I've heard lots of stories where other different conditions and diseases that people just have turned to medical marijuana and it has saved their life. I just, and like you said, even the laparoscopic surgeries, when I've talked to people about, I had 7 inches of my femur removed, again, not in this one-uppy fashion. And I'll never forget this surgeon that I had that I wasn't a fan of came to visit me for the 2 minutes of the 5 days that I was in the hospital and after this replacement surgery. And he was like, yeah, I remember when I had my ACL, done. And I was like, really? What about your story matters to me right now that you just took out with a saw 7 inches of my femur and my entire knee joint and every ligament. and literally I'm missing half of the longest bone in my body, the strongest bone in our body, and you're literally telling me about a procedure that you had, trying to relate to me. If anybody else says that, I don't care because nobody's going to know about these surgeries. But for my physician who did these surgeries to try and compare, I was so pissed. I was so pissed. Oh my goodness. It's just it's so different. I mean, it really is. So, yeah, bone. There's not. I mean, even the pain management that I'm on now, which is heavy medication. I mean, they're narcotic prescriptions, doesn't 100% manage it at all. It makes me be able to walk around. So I'm still in pain when I'm walking around. I'm still in pain when I'm sitting. I'm still in pain when I'm laying down. So there's no 100% relief, and I don't think I ever will have that unless even if I got amputated, which is a end all be all option, down the line. But even amputees have so much pain, like I've heard good stories about that. Like I was so happy to just let this limb go or whatever it is. And it was, I had so much pain that it was worth it. And I've heard other, horror stories about post-amputee life and pain with prosthetics and all that kind of thing. So it's all over. People have their preferences with how they want to manage their pain, and some people are successful and some people aren't. This has been successful for me no matter how much of a stigma, opiates have gotten. I can't stress how important pain management is. It's so important, and so many physicians don't talk to you about it. It's crazy.
Or they have their own biases about it. And there usually does need to be a bunch of things that you use, like opioids and physical therapy, and marijuana can help. Like, or especially if you're chronic illness where it's a whole bunch of separate conditions, like some things handle my fibro stuff. Marijuana handles my fibro stuff just fine. I hate to say it, fibro sucks, and if you are dealing with fibro, I hear you, but the muscle pain seems to be dealt with a lot better with marijuana for me. The pain from dislocating has to have massive level of opioids.
You need to call for reinforcements.
Yeah, exactly.
And that makes sense. Physical therapy. If you think about it, the tension in your muscles, right? Like we were just talking about, what smoking a joint or whatever it is, or edibles or whatever it may be, it's like taking that ease down. And for me, the relaxation, if I'm having that muscle soreness, which I can have, is, can be alleviated by taking a Klonopin. Because you're essentially you're getting a little bit sedated. So yeah, I can imagine. But that's awesome that helps with your, fibromuscular pain.
I love it. Well, I use it also for when I dislocate, the muscles will freeze and then you can't relocate because I'm not going to go. I dislocate 5 times a day. Would you like to guess how much it would cost if I went to the hospital every time I dislocated? I don't go to the hospital. So I have to take the muscles to stop spasming and then just gently relocate, which also requires opioids. So, we sort of mix and match a whole bunch of stuff. And then I have to take opioids to go to my physical therapist because whenever I see her, she has to relocate whatever I couldn't relocate. So we have to bring the pain level down.
I feel like people don't know. Yeah. You're given that prescription post-op. Guess what half of it's for?
Mm-hmm. To get better.
That shit before you go to your PT because it's going to hurt like shit.
Please time your medications appropriately. Yes.
Right. And it's not don't be a hero, man. It's, my dad had, and obviously not a bone surgery, but at the time, 65 years old or 60, whatever, he had this major shoulder reconstruction that was a 40-year past injury. So I'm sure it just got continually worse. And he was like, I'm not going to take one painkiller. And he was taking Advil, and he was miserable. I was just take one, see how it feels. I
come from a family of
but it's not, you need to manage your pain.
You do. My family is country people. So it's this mythology that is held up for every aunt and uncle who had a surgery and took one aspirin. Just one. And it was so hard to live up with that because it was I feel like I'm a wimp.
Right.
I can't do this with one aspect. And now I take my painkillers so that I can do my physical therapy so I don't lose strength. There's different ways to take this. Please, we are not doctors. Do not sue us.
Absolutely not.
Talk to your doctor, talk to your physical therapist, talk to your pain clinic, see what works. But I'm just saying, I just switched how I take my painkillers within the last 3 months to take them before physical therapy and before I do physical therapy every day, and that has increased my ability to do physical therapy, which has increased my strength. There's different ways to handle this. But there's no medal that's going to be given to you because you didn't take something.
No. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to feel like shit, and you're probably going to be mean.
Yeah, you're going to be mean. You're going to get divorced. And you're going to not get any better because you're not going to be able to do your physical therapy properly. Like, just not advocating what you don't need, just advocating for, like, talk to your doctors about what you do need. Because the only big difference between, like, 10 years ago and now with the opioid crisis is now doctors are going to jail and are freaking out that they can't prescribe it. So it's like you can't take a pendulum and go all the way to, like, oh my goodness, you stubbed your toe, here's your oxycodone. To you just had most of your femur removed. How's that Advil treating you? Like, there has to, like, we don't have to go all the way to the wall either side. Like, the United States seems to be really good at just running to separate walls and hitting themselves. Like,
absolutely,
there's a mid-ground.
And what really stinks is that, you know, at the end of the day, these are my opinions and my own. I fully find physicians 100% accountable for what has happened with this opioid stuff, because it is. Like,
we can disagree on that, but okay.
Right. Well, okay, so a specific story that I'll tell you. There was, and I want to say maybe Ohio, and I was exaggerating with 100, but a lot of accountability. A story in Ohio for a big pharmacy retailer that shall remain nameless, but one that I'm sure everybody knows, where there were more prescriptions for opioids than there were people in the town. So that's kind of, you know, an instance where you're like, what on earth, right? And I think what's really unfortunate about that is kind of like you're saying, like, you know, they don't feel like they can resort to, you just had a root canal, like, here's a couple of oxycodone or hydrocodone or whatever it may be. And I feel really shitty when I'm trying to pick up a prescription for something as intense as this, and I have the treatment, like the drug-seeking assumption of whatever it is. Even when I go to a pain specialist, so I see them, and even sometimes talking to them, you build this kind of wall where you don't want to, like, sound like that. And it really sucks that I have to guard what I'm saying.
I'm getting, like, worried about saying that this isn't covering the pain anymore. Like, I'm always scared to say, I'm actually getting worse. Can you up my prescription? Because I'm so scared they're going to be like, oh, you've now crossed that threshold into drug seeker.
Right.
Like, I've been going to the same doctor for 5 years, and I still get afraid. And we still have issues when we go to the pharmacy. I still have pharmacists, like...
The pharmacy is the hardest.
Oh, the amount of shade they throw. I'm like, you guys have been studying, like, how to throw shade, because this is, like, a new level of judgment.
Absolutely. And it's kind of this idea of, we need the pharmacy more than they need us. So I feel like, you know, the care is kind of gone there. But that's where I've kind of had the most issues, where I moved and there was a pharmacy that was closer to me, and I wanted to transfer my usual monthly pain medication, and they wanted nothing to do with it. And I was like, okay, cool. So now I have to drive another, like, 4 miles on top of the other 4 or whatever. Yeah. So it's just, that really stinks really badly. But yeah, the pain management, like, you know, another example, like, you know, every year that passes by, there's more research that's done. And, you know, I know a lot of people, like, one big thing that is kind of, I've seen a lot of people in the bone tumor world get are spinal cord stimulators. That's kind of a really big thing. And one of the pain specialists I was seeing was highly recommending it for me. And it's very, very well known to treat nerve pain. And for me, I was like, okay, not only do I not want to add another pill, but I don't want to open a part of my body that I've never had open for something that I don't know is going to be a sure thing, being my back. Like, I mean, and I remember, like, YouTube researching people that had just gotten the spinal cord stimulator done, and this woman did, like, a daily diary of videos, and she just looked like she was hating life so bad, and talking about how painful her back was from the surgery. So now you have, like, a new pain and, like, a new area of your body to treat. So, and I haven't really heard any one of the people that I know that have gotten the spinal cord stimulator say, like, oh my gosh, you know, that I can walk again and I can do all this stuff again. I haven't heard any, you know, great stories. There might be some amazing stories out there that I don't know of.
Yeah, one of our previous interviews, she had hers done, and we keep in touch, and it's life-changing. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome. But awesome. It's also like, it's so hard to tell, like, should I do this? It's like when you're reading Amazon reviews and it's like, the best thing ever. Oh my God, this will ruin your life. Don't touch it. It's like, how do you make a choice? Like, it's so hard to make choices.
And like, why do we go to the bad reviews first? Right? That's always what I do first. I'm like, let's see what the 1 star was, right? Instead of seeing what all the 40, 90% of good reviews were. But yeah, like the spinal cord stimulator, amazing idea. And, at the end of the day, for me, again, like, I think in my instance that it was being pushed to try and lower this, dependence, if you will, on opioids for pain management. And I know, these organizations that make these devices and stuff like that will give some physicians a kickback and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole different topic. But
it's a fun topic.
I know. But yeah, so that was an option and I decided no on it, and I'm just going to continue to reconstruct the area of issue of concern, and go forward with that. But, like, even I remember when they would prescribe the NSAID drugs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, that would just, like, destroy my stomach. And I tried, like, 4 different types of prescriptions that docs really wanted me to try for the inflammation factor. And they now make one that I wouldn't have known unless I asked. And it has, like, a built-in kind of antacid, if you will. And it's like a Motrinate with a built-in stomach coating something or other. And it's called Duexis, if anybody's interested. But it has worked. It has worked really well. And I know that for me, I'm not going to take an extra opioid if I'm in extra pain. So if I can find something else that works for me, right? If I know that I'm going to be particularly active, like in September, I just took a 10-day trip to Europe. And I knew I was going to be dead at the end of every day with my ambitious itinerary, as my boyfriend said. This is really ambitious. I'm like, we're going to do as much as we can. And I would make these makeshift ice packs from the hospital ice, all the way down to my feet of things that would just hurt so bad. And, another really interesting thing is like adrenaline is like an amazing drug. It's insane. And I had this replacement surgery 3 months before my best friend got married, and I was the maid of honor. And I had like a wonderful day at her wedding, and I could like not move for 3 days once it was done. It's just, and I think that's what happened on this European trip, where like I came even on like the plane, the second I got into the airport, I was just dead. And, the majority of the trip, of course, I would have pain at the end of the night, major swelling, and all that kind of thing. But, like, it's really incredible what adrenaline can do. And that's just something that we come with.
It's super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just go to Europe or go on trips every week and get this, like, rush of adrenaline or do crazy adventures every week, and you'll have a big cycle of recovery.
It's what I missed the most about working was like, I loved my job. I was a photographer, and when I was working, it wasn't adrenaline, it was getting in the flow. And when you're in that flow state where nothing else exists, and when I was shooting, nothing else existed. No pain, nothing. I was just in that moment. And then the second the shooting was done, it was like collapse. And then it was like six Vicodin to get home. And like, it was just brutal, but I miss that because I haven't ever found anything that is that good at getting me out of pain. And I haven't found that flow state thing yet. Like I have some things, but now like I've gotten so much more advanced that like even like drawing, I'll pop my wrist out while I'm drawing, or interviewing. I've already gone through 2 dislocations interviewing you today. Like there's
goodness. Have you put them back?
Yep.
So who teaches you how to do that?
Oh my God. Yes. YouTube. Holy what do we do without YouTube?
Right. I learned how to reprogram my bed remote on YouTube the other night because it just stopped. And that was the best purchase I ever made, by the way. Anybody with any kind of disability get the adjustable bed.
I got one.
Whatever.
It is the
I
best.
do everything from there.
I dislocate my femur, and like I have this 0 gravity setting on my bed that I'm like, oh, thank you. This is the best. The only thing I want now is like I want to get the heating one, the one that will like do heat or cold. And like if we could do that on like, because I'm always the opposite temperature of whatever it is, and my husband goes nuts. So like if we could like, have like so we could sleep next to each other, but my bed could be a totally separate bed. Awesome. Yeah, you're right. That was incredibly kind. Because I'm on disability. My mom bought us that. That was an incredible gift.
Yeah.
was everything.
When I just bought a house a year ago, and that was
congratulations.
Thank you. It was a hellacious process that I don't really want to go through again. But, this just proves how much these types of things just kind of sneak into every other thing in your life, is that I had to depend what I liked in a house based on my disability. Yep. So I was looking for first floor living and a master on the first floor, and my house has been a little bit of a money pit and everything else that I've had to fix. But all that I gave a shit about was that my master was on the first floor and that I could do everything on that floor. And the irony is that I just had my shower redone to be full ADA with the bars and the bench and everything. So I'm going to be having the surgery soon. And the door to the bathroom was 18 inches wide. It's like an old Cape Cod.
Yeah.
And I was able to get it, or 20 inches wide, and I was able to get it to 24, and I was like, okay, as long as I can fit here through crutches, and not to mention the weight that you gain from being sedentary for 5 to 10 years or longer.
Can we just have a quick word to all doctors? Could you please not tell us we need to lose weight? We're all aware that with our meds that have slowed down our metabolisms, where we do not do well moving, we're all clear that we're not the same size we were before this started. We're all good. We didn't miss this. This didn't just escape our notice.
Right.
We weren't shocked. Calm that down. Unless you can tell me something. Yeah, they actually sent me to a dietitian because I was I can literally show you everything I eat in a day. It's between on a big day 1,600 calories. On most days I'm around 1,300, and I'm still way over. And my dietitian, they're you should see a dietitian. And she looked at it, she's I can't recommend you go down to what you would need to go down to lose weight. It would be starvation.
Right.
So
I remember one person was with your sedentary lifestyle right now of not being able to do can I do things from bed? Sure, but everybody that's posting about their soldier fits and all that stuff that are jumping and high impact and all that stuff, I can't do that. The most I can maybe do is Pilates, right? And even that would be kind of hard. And people are yoga would be great for you. I'm yoga would be great until I get down on the ground and I can't get up. I need life alert.
I fall and I can't get up. I love talking to someone of my generation. This is very exciting. And all the references I'm getting. Yay! I've learned that because my body will change what it can and can't do based on every 20 seconds. So I have no idea. And either I just stop which makes me worse because muscle, and you know how this goes, muscle is everything. And if you lose that, you don't have anything. So I started to be really kind to myself, and I got this app called Nike Training App, and it's free, which I love.
Okay.
And it has all of the exercises my PT recommends on it, and it just automatically dings. It's 30 seconds, and then I'll go ding, and then it won't talk to me again until it's ready for me to do the next thing. And whatever I can't do, or whatever I stop and I'm not able to do, I just can press the next exercise. So I can just keep scrolling through until I get to the exercise I can do, and it's oh, I can do that today. Oh, it's only my ribs that are dislocating. Great, we'll work on the legs. Done.
Right.
Oh, my tibia's dislocated. We're going to be able to do the arms today. Or everything's dislocated. I guess we can do breathing exercises. That one. So it's just a matter of changing what you think success is. What is a successful workout? Well, I'm obviously not going to be able to go to the gym and get do all the training stuff everyone's super psyched about, the HIIT workout. I'm oh, that's cute. You enjoy that. That's great for you.
Exactly.
90% of what people are doing where they're shredding it at the gym or
shredding it up.
Yeah.
Well, here's the
or the newest diet where they're oh, I've given up sugar. I tried that. I gained 16 pounds in 2 days because mast cell is fun. It's everyone's super they know what's going to happen, what works for them. It's if you don't have a healthy body, it's going to be a different situation. And by the way, your diet will react to your pills.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's another thing I've noticed, that before being for a couple of years on opiates, I could lose a few pounds if I was really trying hard. And the opiates are really, I think, the culprit of what has given me such a hard time with the weight. And it's just, your body's stagnant, right? I mean, nothing inside is going as it should be. And
intestines and stomach as well. Like there's a reason they have another prescription for you if you're on opioids so that you can actually eliminate your food.
Right. So the commercials, you have opioid-induced constipation. Oh, here's another pill. And I'm like, holy crap.
Thanks. Really need that one.
Right. Like I have like a little pill thing every day, and I have like, I'm hypothyroid with Hashimoto, so like I'll have my Synthroid every morning, and like a Klonopin or whatever it is. And
we didn't even get to all the other things you have. Gee.
Yeah.
Like in an hour, I'm like, we have a lot to still talk about.
I know. Well, thankfully, those for me, I feel like yet have caused me anything super concerning. I mean, I just like a couple of years ago had a needle aspirating biopsy on my thyroid just because it's large, and it's been very large. I was diagnosed at like 26 with that, but even at that time, I was in the best shape of my life. I had, I think, one surgery already, and those first couple of surgeries were have this major surgery. I'm 20-something years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. 2, 3, 4, 5 months of intensive physical therapy. Didn't hurt that I worked for a physical therapy company, and I got like the best treatment and free that I could have. Like, how could I, how did that work out? And so I would fully recover, fully get off medication, and that just has not been the case the last 5 years. It's really just been terrible. And I was telling you, within 1.5 years, I had a revision done after I had this implant, because the only thing that I kept anatomy-wise of my knee was the kneecap, because that's typically not something you replace. Like, there is a kneecap replacement, but it's not like something that's super successful. And like the tendons, that hold my kneecap there. And my now surgeon had to rotate this new knee, this fake knee that I have, 40 degrees to align correctly with my kneecap. That was because that was the pain I was having. I was walking every day. And it was just, he could feel it upon just touching it. And this is another kind of advocating to find who's really meant to be your surgeon and who's going to give you the best care. The previous surgeon that I had that did this surgery on me, I continued to tell him during follow-up appointments, like, I am having so much pain getting around, and I've heard that this surgery is very successful. Like, this just doesn't feel normal. I know my freaking body. And he didn't even x-ray. He didn't do anything. And he was just like, whatever, it's just how it's going to be. Come to find out, when I go to see my now surgeon, he literally just palpates the knee and knows that there's an issue, does an x-ray, find the issue, and schedule the surgery and get it fixed. So it's just, it's really tough. And I think that different people, like I've heard various people that have had great experiences with a surgeon that I haven't had a great experience. It's just like you're going to be unique, obviously, to the physician that's going to work the best for you. And I just, I can't, as much as you're able to, right? If there's something that disappoints you that you don't like to hear, or get a second opinion. This is such a rare condition to get and just be, have this as an ailment in your life. And if you can find any other kind of resource or, resource online and search for bone tumor other people now with everything that we have with social media, it's exactly what I was doing 5 years ago. Like, hey, you had this surgery that I'm about to have. Can you tell me about it? Like, tell me what I'm in for, kind of thing. So,
You make such a great point. And like, if you are privileged enough to have a really good health insurance, or you live in an area where there's multiple doctors, if you are privileged enough for that,
exactly.
If you are feeling disrespected by your doctor, keep remembering like that they're actually like they're a service. Like, you're supposed to be treated with respect. Like, you should never feel disrespected or humiliated by your doctor. That's an abusive relationship with your doctor. Like, absolutely. I had to learn that the hard way. I get like a doctor PTSD when someone has a white coat. I like all of my personality shuts down, and I get so scared. Like, I have the hardest time like advocating, and yeah, it's real. Like, you get super nervous, but like, you should always be treated with care and respect and concern. And like, when you're talking about like the doctors and like the mobility issue, there's also a thing with a lot of the chronic illness community on when do you start using mobility aids. And right. I've had like PTs go, no, you can't use a wheelchair because you will lose muscle strength, and then right. you will not be able to walk. And then when I started using a wheelchair, when I needed to, it actually ended up increasing my strength because I had more ability to do the real exercises that built muscle. And like,
Right.
not to say that works for everyone. I'm just saying, like, these are things to think about when a doctor's like, no, you can't do what makes you feel comfortable and safe. Like, see about like if that's really definitely what needs to happen. And with the social media groups, those are priceless to be able to see what other people's experiences are. So thank you so much for creating your social media group.
Thank you. I mean, I'm grateful. It's honestly awesome to have people from all over the world contact and say, hey, and even it'll even be caretakers. A lot of parents, because it's a lot of young people with this, with bone tumors, and so people that are just really struggling. And typically, they'll kind of either one ask me what treatment will be like or what recovery will be like, or two, they're coming to me because they left unhappy with the physician. And it's so heartbreaking, especially with something as serious and like, horrendously painful as this. It angers me and it saddens me that there's, individuals that like to go in, and I understand, like, some especially surgeons, like they love to cut, right? Like they love to go perform surgery and they like hate their clinicals, right? The follow-up appointments and all that stuff. And, I hate it too. I'm sitting there for 1, 2, 3 hours or whatever waiting. I have to take half a day, if not a full day off from work or whatever it is, and waste of PTO on something that I wish would not be that long. And especially when I'm waiting for an hour and my appointment's 3 minutes. It's like that really sucks. But, there are some doctors, and this is how I knew my surgeon now is just very passionate about what he does. Not only he participates in tons of research and studies and journals and authors a ton of stuff, but I actually saw him walking around the pre-op floor, and I've never seen that in any of my what's soon to be 7 surgeries ever. I've usually seen what's kind of like the elusive, like you say, that white coat coming in to visit you with like whatever, fancy stuff that, I remember, I'll never forget one surgery, a surgeon was wearing pearls like under her white coat, and that was like the only thing I remembered. And she came in for 2 seconds to say hi to my parents. I'm all IV'd and everything in pre-op, which is like the most nerve-wracking moment that you have. And they see you for 2 seconds. You barely see them after surgery. It's like, because these are teaching hospitals, so it's like mostly residents. You're under the care of residents, and you're kind of like this lab rat. And this surgeon, he has Tuesday, Thursday surgery, and the rest of the days are for his follow-ups and clinicals. And I had surgery on Tuesday, and I hear somebody come into my room on Wednesday at like 6 in the morning, and it was him on his clinical day to see how I was doing. I have never, ever had that in my life. And he stuck around with me for as long as possible. We shot the shit. It was great. And even when the anesthesiologist and the nurses and everybody on the pre-op floor were telling me how much they love this doctor and surgeon, just validated me being with him. And another thing that really sucks, there are surgeons in the bone tumor world in orthopedic oncology that are known as fixers, that they'll essentially fix or revise a surgery from another surgeon that may be not following up with you as much as they should be.
Yeah, if you ever want to know, and you can, ask the nurses who they would have as their surgeon, because if they're willing to answer honestly, then you will get the best answer.
Right, they're coworkers. Like we think of doctors and physicians as this like elusive thing, right? They're humans like us. They're coworkers, and these people just could not. They were like raving about him, and just like he was talking to everybody. Every single person involved in the process of my operation and my everything, and I've never had that in the 15 years of now 4, so 3 other surgeons. Have I had other surgeons that I've really liked? Totally. One in particular that I really liked, and geographically is the reason why I'm not seeing him. Was his bedside manner like the one that I have now? He was a little more nerdy and like, to the point, whatever. But I liked his honesty. I thought he had great treatment for me. But as far as like the whole package, and I realize you might never find the whole package, but the whole package is, I won the lottery with the surgeon that I have now. And sadly, I've talked to, I've recommended another friend from my group that's local to me to see him after, a surgeon that we both had was kind of like semi-abandoning us with post-operative pain years later. So you know your body the most, right? And if somebody wants to tell you without x-raying, without scientific proof, that nothing is wrong, right? Just there's no shame in finding something else. And another thing, I know so many people are just really reluctant to change, and they get a lot of anxiety with change, and getting off a path and starting over. But this is your livelihood, and like your getting around and mobility and everything. These are really important things to not bargain for, like I'll drive that extra hour or whatever it is, and again, like the perfect thing that you said earlier, like if you have the privilege, like I'm probably a terrible example because I've been able to afford these insurances and I've been able to afford this stuff. And that, like I said, that was a rude awakening when I first started this group, because I thought that I was going to be able to raise money for the cause, and now I'm just essentially helping people out, with what I have. That I don't have kids, I don't have certain other expenses that I have been able to help some folks that need help more than I do. So yeah, that's really kind of what this group has become. Between and I have this little tagline: "The cure to endure." Like, it's really finding people that you can talk to about this. And it's crazy that I have people that I would consider some of my best friends that I've never met in person, So it's unbelievable, really, what you can find from these kind of getting all together and rallying together for your health and to share with one another.
That's what all the power is when you get everyone together to work towards a single cause. I mean, it's like herding cats sometimes, but right. It's the most useful. Well, if you would like to see this show visually, go over to our YouTube channel. If you want to see some of the things that we're talking about, if you want to visit the website, just go over to our show notes. I'll have everything all linked up right at the top. And thank you so much for giving me so much of your time this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I took more of your time than we anticipated.
I'm so happy. I'm just getting to like this level of pain where I'm like, I am hearing like 80% of what you're saying, and I should probably take pills just about now. So thank you for being on.
Put it in your notes like I do. Don't forget.
Yes, absolutely. Well, be kind, be gentle, be a badass. If you want to do something really nice for the show, head on over to Apple Podcasts. I think that's what it's called now. It's still where we get most of our listeners, and leave some things to say. If I do read everything, I mean, good and bad, I read it all. I take it all to heart. So be nice. Always be nice, but be honest. All right. So thanks, everyone. Eva will be on next week. I don't know who she's going to be interviewing, but it will definitely be something fun.